creating scroll-stopping social media using psychology. Can everyone just put their hands up or thumbs up to say you can see the screen? Can you see the screen? All good? Okay, cool. Great. So there's me. I'm James. There's my face. I'm the director and training lead at Digital Firefly, and we are called Digital Firefly because we used to be a completely digital marketing agency. So we did everything digital marketing wise, but in the new year, we're looking to rebrand and probably going to become Social Firefly, because we're moving into just doing social media, because that's the thing that we love the most, is building relationships with clients, customers, and supporters on social media. We work with a big range of different clients. Here's just a couple of them, from hospices to Brighton City Council. We're currently running all of their COVID-19 advertising, policing, domestic abuse charities, International Alliance of Patients Organisations, YMCA, loads of different types of organisations, from charities to big global organisations to more local, smaller businesses and organisations as well. And what we do for these people is social media strategy, content, and advertising, plus this kind of training stuff. So, what are we going to do today? This is the session plan. There's a bit of me talking at the beginning, a lot of me talking through social media psychology, then talking about how we build relationships with people on social media, getting people's attention, and then we're going to do a bit of a brainstorm at the end as well. But there'll be parts throughout the session where you can ask questions, and it's going to be fairly relaxed. So I'll let you know when there's bits to ask questions. But if you do have anything that you want to bring up during, just type it in the comment section, and I'm sure I can reply. So let's get started, because we've got a lot to cover. And like we said, you will get the slides afterwards, so don't worry too much if you miss something. So social media psychology 101. Firstly, oxytocin. So we're talking a little bit about psychology and a little bit about biology today as well. So oxytocin lowers stress and increases feelings of love. It's triggered by hugs, kisses, and tweets. It plays a big role in social bonding. Basically, when we have some kind of connection with another human being, we get this little dose of oxytocin. And that doesn't have to be a physical connection. It doesn't have to be a hug or a kiss. It can be us liking somebody's tweet, or it can be a comment on a Facebook post. That triggers oxytocin in the person receiving that comment, because it's literally just connecting you with another human being, even though it's digital. In 10 minutes of social media time, oxytocin levels can rise as much as 13%. And that's apparently a hormonal spike equivalent to some people on their wedding day. I'm sure some people will have a much bigger hormonal spike on their wedding day, and some might have a much smaller one. But the point is, this connection, doesn't matter how we do it, whether it's a like or a comment or a share or a hug, it triggers oxytocin in us. It makes us want it more. Mix that with dopamine, and you've got this perfect combination in social media. So dopamine causes us to seek, desire, and search. It's triggered by unpredictability, small bits of information, and reward cues. So what do I mean by that? You've all seen where you might type something on a Facebook post, or you might see a Facebook post where it says, see more, because it's been truncated. There's just a little first sentence, and then it says see more. Clicking that see more gives us a little hit of dopamine because it's about seeking and desire and finding out more. It's the same with small videos, which urge us on to watch longer videos, or clicking a link, or even, again, commenting on something. So tweeting and checking emails may be harder to resist than cigarettes and alcohol, according to some researchers, because it's about people trying to resist their desires. And social media brings both of those core things in, dopamine and oxytocin, brings them both in together, because you've got that connection with human beings, but you've also got that reward and information seeking element, dopamine. So it's no wonder that social media has become ubiquitous in our world, because we do become a little bit addicted to it, because it is about us having that connection with people and seeking out new information, which triggers both oxytocin and dopamine. And lastly, so we've spoken a bit about what oxytocin and dopamine does to make us want to keep using social media. Now, I could spend a whole day talking about color theory, but once you mix oxytocin and dopamine with a color that triggers us to think and feel something, you've got the perfect combination of social media posts. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. But I just want you to think about the colors that you use online and on social media specifically. Think about the subconscious feelings we get from those colors. There is a reason that Digital Firefly's branding is orange. We want people to think confidence, success, bravery, sociability. There's a reason the Green Party is green. There's a reason blue is normally police forces, for instance, and Coca-Cola is red. Subconsciously, when we see these colors, we think about these emotions. But also, it gets us to stop scrolling and engage. Bright colors get us to stop scrolling and engage on social media. So if you can use color to get people to stop scrolling, feel something about you, and then write something on that social media post that makes them feel like they need to click like, oxytocin, and then makes them want to click see more or click a link, dopamine, then that's a perfect combination for the perfect social media post. We'll get into a bit more of that later. But I just wanted to show you this. We're going to look at the color a bit later again, but I just wanted you to see that now. So that's kind of the why, the dopamine, the oxytocin, and the colors. That's the reason why we're so addicted to social media, because of that social connection, reward cues, and the colors help to grab attention. Now let's talk a bit about building relationships. So a lot of businesses, charities, organizations use social media completely wrong. They think of it as a billboard, just to sell their products, tell people what they're up to, try to get donations, for instance. But you can't just be selling on social media. 74% of people are tired of social media ads. And when I say social media ads, I mean ads that are clearly not meant to be in Facebook or Twitter. They're just trying to sell you something. You've got to think about how you can create social media posts that feel like they belong in social media, that people are going to want to engage with. Secondly, people who report receiving good social media customer service will spend 21% more money on that company's products. And the same goes for charities for donations and support. If people are getting good customer service from you, they're going to want to engage with you more and spend more. Now, I think you could remove social media from that sentence and it would still be true. It's just about having good relationships with your customers or supporters. And lastly, every day, the average UK-based social media user spends almost 2 hours scrolling through social media. Now, that was before lockdown, before a pandemic. We know it's increased, but we don't have the exact numbers. But notice how I've written scrolling. That's all they're doing. They've got their phone and they're scrolling. They're not paying attention. They're not really doing anything. They're not engaging. So your job is to build relationships with people in social media and find ways to get them to stop scrolling and actually engage with you and want to engage with you. So social media includes the word social for a reason. So the way you get people to build relationships with you is by just having real conversations with them, being real human beings, not branded entities. Social media is no different to any other networking or marketing. Nothing has changed. It's just new school tools. It's old school networking, old school marketing with new school tools. You've got to have conversations and engage more than you broadcast, and you've got to give more than you ask. You wouldn't walk into a networking meeting, shake someone's hand and say, donate to my charity, buy my product. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. It's the same for social media. You have to build real relationships with people and find ways to get them to stop scrolling and actually engage with you and what you're trying to say. Now, the engagement ladder. So we've spoken about the scroll stopping, and that's how you get into somebody's world at first, is to get them to stop scrolling and engage with you. Well, that's number one on the engagement ladder. That is the first thing that you need to do with every person that you are trying to engage with. Get them to stop and actually do something with your post. Next, you've got share a post, then joining conversations, actively seek out your news, respond and engage, and advocate. Now, you obviously want to get any social media audience that you have to points 5 and 6. You want people advocating for you. You want people donating for you, because at that point where influence and change is happening, they're doing your job for you. They're telling the world about your charity. They're telling the world why other people should get involved. But the most difficult part of all of this is the first 2 points at the top. Getting people to stop and like your post, start to engage with you, then getting them to share. Those 2 things are the most difficult thing to do. Once you've done that, you begin to have a bit more of a relationship with your followers, and you can begin to try to get them engaged more in commenting and actually having conversations. Now, like I said, the slides will be sent out, so you'll have this. But I think it's a really interesting graphic, just to get an idea of, well, what are the points that you need to hit to get somebody to a point where they really like you and want to engage more and want to advocate for you. So to do all of that, to get people all the way through the engagement ladder, there's 2 things you've got to do. You've got to give and you've got to ask. 80% But everything that you're putting out on social media should be about giving. So this isn't about asking people to donate or get involved in something. This is about trying to get them engaged in some way. So it's got to be fun, it's got to be entertaining, it's got to provide some information, provide some kind of value to your followers so that at one point they'll want to advocate and donate to you. Now, it's really difficult to get this 80-20 split, but it's really important to try to get as close as you possibly can, because like I said, social media includes the word social for a reason. It's about having real conversations with people. It's about engaging them and getting them to want to do something for you. So you've got to give as much as you can. Provide some kind of value or interest. And in this stage, when you're giving, you need to be thinking about how can I get people firstly, how do I get people to stop and actually engage? And secondly, how do I get people to share what I'm saying? Sharing is one of the most powerful things that people do on social media because it builds reach and it begins to snowball and get more engagement. Now, these are the reasons people share online, and you'll have the link to the source for this. And I think it's really important that whenever you're beginning to put together social media posts, when you're thinking of your content that you want to put out there, that you're thinking of ways to get people to click that share button. Remember, when they click the share button, they're getting a little hit of oxytocin, so are you, and there's a little bit of dopamine in there as well because they are seeking. So there's loads of different reasons people share, but I think they all connect very closely with the second option here, defining ourselves to others. Now, 84% of people at the bottom here say that they share to get the word out there about causes and brands. But selfishly, every single person, when they share something from a cause or brand, they are defining themselves to others at the same time. They are telling the world, I believe about this cause or brand, and you should believe in it too. So to a certain extent, when you're writing anything in social media, you've got to think, will the person on the other end of this phone or laptop, will they want to share this to define themselves to their group and to other people? All of this other stuff is fine, but it's that defining ourselves to others that really has to connect in some way. And finally, after you've done all the 80% of trying to actually build relationships with people, 20% of your content can be about asking. So that's asking for somebody to donate, for instance, or to click a link and read more about something. With your asks, they need to follow a similar pattern to your gives as well. You need a hook to grab people's attention. You need a narrative. You've got to tell a story. And then you need one call to action. Ask them to do one thing. Never ask them to do more than one thing. We're simple. We just want to be told what to do. One thing. It has to be linked to your objectives. So this is another thing that a lot of charities and small businesses get wrong. They forget about why they're in social media. They don't have objectives. They don't think about what they're trying to achieve. You need to be thinking about what you're trying to achieve with any of your social media posts. In the giving stage, mostly what you're trying to achieve is to build awareness and to build engagement, to actually build relationships with people. So it doesn't need to have a business objective. But in the ask stage, you need to be thinking, well, what am I really trying to achieve with this post? Is it a business objective? Do I want more people to donate or sign up to my email list or come along to my event? It's the ask, not the take. You've got to ask. You can't just take from people, obviously. You've still got to stay on brand. And I mentioned stay on brand in the giving stage as well. Don't put out cute cat videos because they'll work if you're not, a pet store, or your audience isn't really going to engage with a cat video. Cats do work on social media, and so do dogs. People love them. But don't do something that's completely off tone and not as part of your brand. And you've got to try and link with offline actions as well. So all the way through developing any kind of social media content, you've got to try to make sure it links in some way back to what you're trying to achieve at an overall organizational level. Fine, that's all great. But how do we get people's attention? So we know that mostly we want to engage with people, and that's our first big thing we want to do. But before we can even do that, we've got to get people's attention. And we're going to do a quick exercise. So I've got to put you over here so I can see more of you. And actually, what I'll do is, if you can go on the chat, I'm going to ask a question in a minute, and you've got to write in the chat what you see. So, can anyone see the word ready? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to have 3 seconds. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, and then a load of images will flash up. And you've got to tell me in the chat which image you saw first. Okay? This better work. Right, in the chat, what did you see? Can we see a pattern? I can see a pattern.
There's a whole lot of spiders here, James. A lot of spiders, some green gloves.
Yeah.
Somebody's seen a leaf, and somebody has seen a shoe.
There's quite a few shoes actually in there as well.
Now shoes.
That's an interesting one. That keeps coming up recently, and I'm not entirely sure. I think it's the colour of the shoe actually that's doing it. But the green gloves, that comes up a lot. The spider comes up a lot. Now, let's talk a bit about that. So, there wasn't a house, but sometimes people say they saw a house. There wasn't one. It's left-hand side easy. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, I've done one of these recently, and I think I need to move where the images are, because I think that does change things a little bit. So most of you said spider, green glove, leaf. The shoe is a bit of a difficult one. I think it is because of where it is on the screen. But people see the spider and the green glove. The green glove looks a bit like a spider because it's like that, and it's bright green. So there's 2 reasons that we're seeing these things. Our modern skulls have Stone Age brains. We're not that evolved. If we see a spider or a snake or a shark or something we think is going to kill us, that's the first thing we're going to see. We have to notice that before anything else, because it could be poisonous, it might hurt us. The same goes for that bright green colour. So the glove is quite a bright green colour. That bright colours tend to be unnatural. So whenever we see bright colors in nature, so think of a frog with the black and yellow spots, or a spider with a big red on its tail. Those bright colors tend to point out that something is poisonous, it's going to hurt us. So we see those things first. This is about emotion, color, and surprise. So firstly, fear, frustration, anger. These are things we have to notice to survive, like the spider or the bright green gloves. And then emotion, joy, happiness, inspiration, humor. And then something out of the ordinary, bright colors. So the bright colors are things in nature that we don't normally see. So here's two examples of that color, emotion, surprise type thing. On the left, we've got something from the TEFL Academy, one of our clients here. And this is about emotion, really. And it links with the next section, which I'm going to talk about as well. But obviously, the emotional face of the child is going to grab attention. But there's some humor in there as well at the top, with good luck to history teachers of the future. It grabbed attention and it got people to engage. The emotion side of things there. So the image, which is a meme basically, that's the hook. And then at the top, you've got the narrative. That's the story we're telling. And with this one, we're not really asking for anything. Subconsciously, we're asking for people to engage with this post. But the emotion is the thing that's grabbed attention there. On the right, we've got something from Flows, a domestic abuse charity. And we've got the bright yellow color. So that bright yellow is the thing that gets people to stop scrolling. That's the hook. And then above that, we've got a call to action and a narrative. We've got a story there about if you come into contact with women who are experiencing domestic abuse and want to benefit from expert support, etc. That's the narrative. Hook, narrative, call to action. But the hook is that bright yellow color. We have to notice that to survive because it might be poisonous. There's the colors again. So the color gets us to stop, but at the same time, with that Flows post, we were using yellow. That's about happiness, warmth, cheer. One thing that we try to do with that domestic abuse charity is to try to steer clear of the old trope of people crying with their hands the face in their hands. We try to think about after domestic abuse. Try to think about the coming out of it. So we want those colors that are associated with happiness. But at the same time, it's bright, so it gets people to stop scrolling. Next is baby schema. So baby schema basically means big eyes, big forehead. It's a bit like me, but I'm obviously nowhere near as cute as a baby. But cute babies, fluffy dogs, cats, those kind of cute things. Just like the spider, who we had to notice to survive, we have to notice baby schema, cute things, because they're vulnerable. So again, we're going back to our caveman brains. They're vulnerable, so we have to look after them. So we're going to notice them first. Two examples, again, we've got Flows on the left. We've got bright blue, which grabs the attention, along with a cute baby. And then above that, so that's the hook. And then above that, we've got a story. That first line's part of the hook as well. Husna and her children are now safe thanks to her bravery. And then there is a story about her sexual abuse. And then the call to action is read more of the story. And then on the right here, we've got one for YMCA Wise Project in Brighton. And this one's a little bit more fun, but it's trying to put across an important message to a younger audience here. So we've got the bright colors, but we've also got the cute dog to get people to stop scrolling. And it's about sending dog pics, not dick pics. And I think that's quite an interesting, fun way of using baby schema, the cuteness as well. And finally, people and faces. So we've done a bit of faces all the way through this actually. But this is really important to think about because faces in objects can be effective, like a plug socket that looks a bit like a face. Real faces are best, and we're much more likely to remember an image centered on a face and a story centered on people. We are fundamentally built to communicate face to face. Zoom wouldn't exist, Skype wouldn't exist, FaceTime wouldn't exist if we weren't. We're supposed to be doing this. Masks make it worse, but we need to wear the masks. But this face-to-face connection is what we're supposed to be doing. So it makes sense that faces are going to stop us in our tracks and get us to engage. 2 examples here. Again, 2 of our, we're currently running both of these ads. So these are ads on Facebook. On the left, we've got one for Brighton Hove City Council. I'm going to talk a bit about emojis in a minute, but we're using emojis here, and we're also using a nice striking photo. It's all in the eyes with this one, because obviously you can't see the entire face. But it's the human connection that gets people to stop scrolling and engage. On the right, we've got one for the International Alliance of Patients Organisations. And we're just using photos of the speakers that, again, gets people to stop scrolling and click the Learn More button. Both of them have a bit of a story as well, so it's all hook, narrative, call to action. And finally, but on the same kind of topic, both of these ads, we've got one for the TEFL Academy, we've got one for Rowcroft Hospice. Both of them are using faces as in the image to get people to stop scrolling. There's some pop of color as well, which helps. But both of these images were used against multiple forms of texts, and we tested them. This was as an advert. And these ones, you can see I've written on the left, that TEFL Academy one, 145% more conversion. So 145% more people bought the course with that ad. On the right, 101 more landing page views, so people actually clicking to go and sign up to this charity event, than other text variations. The difference with these text variations, emojis, and specifically face emojis, humans, on both of these. I mean, on the TEFL Academy one as well, you've got a little teacher in the headline of the ad. So that's really important. The emojis are the thing that also helps grab attention and get us to engage. And it's because it's a face. That's the whole point. It's a face. So let's give it a go. I flew through that because I want to get us to spend about 10 minutes in pairs thinking about how we can put together a social media post that includes a hook, narrative, call to action, and includes emotion, color, surprise, baby schema, or faces. Before we do that,
ladies, so basically at our charity, I'm really trying to recruit volunteers now, and we help isolated people or older people or people from different countries figure out Zoom and FaceTime and video chat and that kind of stuff, or lots of digital inclusion stuff. But one of the best things that I know that I encourage volunteers to do, most rewardingly, is to get older people or isolated people onto FaceTime to their families. So instantly I just thought of the yellow color for happy, and I love not showing an old sad person the outcome. And then we said, so the granddad is just super big smiles, laughing with his grandkids over the FaceTime, and the cute baby faces, and one's grown a tooth and one's growing, and he's now, and then someone shared that the hook should be Dennis now sees his grandchildren twice a week, or just getting people excited to volunteer to help more granddads see their grandkids. I thought that was really I love a granddad. I just love to see that kind of happy face. So I think that'd be
that.
really good.
I think that will work really nicely. And is the call to action to try to encourage people to volunteer? Is it volunteer to help more people like Dennis?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, and the bright colours going to grab attention. You've connected obviously faces alongside the children, so the baby schema stuff in there as well, which again is going to get people to stop scrolling. And yeah, I absolutely love that. You've got to go away and do it. You've definitely got to do it.
I'm so excited. I'm doing it today. Trust me.
That's perfect. Okay. Let's speak to one more then. We'll do. I think maybe we'll do two more if we can. What's the Seeing Stars one, Sam? What's your Seeing Stars one? Oh, you need to. Oh, there we go.
Hi. In lockdown, we put a classroom-based training online. And we got about 170 hits from Eventbrite for downloads, and we're wondering whether we can turn it into a product. It's about children with hidden difficulties who are not able to concentrate and behave in the classroom. And quite often, if their teacher and people know how to put in sensory strategies, you can boost their attention control and help them to learn better. What Marla and I were talking about, Marla had the idea about using the STARS, which stands for sensory training and regulation strategies. And the idea is that you see the star within the child who's misbehaving, that we have the star animated with a child's face that changes from maybe miserable to happy. And then we have an Eventbrite link to the download of the training program, and some copy that explains that low cost, no cost sensory strategies can change a child's life.
I mean, I think that's perfect. Again, so you've definitely got the faces, the baby schema in there, and then the call to action. So obviously the bright colours with hopefully a bright star is going to help. And then the baby schema too, that's the hook. And then telling the story is definitely the narrative, and that's the thing that's going to get people to click through. So yeah, absolutely love that. Sora, have we got time for one more, or have we got to go? I can't. You're on mute.
Of course. We've probably got time for one more, and then I'm going to force everybody into the break so I can get ready for the next session.
Okay, one more. Who are we going to go for? Claire, what's your one about volunteers and care calling?
So myself and Mary were just having a talk about a kind of similar to Deborah, just a call to help really for volunteers. So it's an existing service that we developed during COVID. So we talked about having kind of a couple of sort of smiley faces, and as Deborah said, not the kind of sad, victim face, because we think it's important that for the volunteers who might be considering volunteering, they don't just think, oh, we're going to be calling these poor people, because actually really meaningful relationships can develop from the calls. And we also talked about the kind of hook of the volunteer getting something out of it, so it being a reciprocal relationship and a reciprocal kind of feeling and benefit. And colours, and obviously, as others have described, sort of using nice colours and that sort of positive and quotes from both the client and the volunteer, just to reflect both experiences.
Yeah, and the showing the benefit to the volunteer is really important there as well, and that's oxytocin as well hitting in, isn't it? Because you're talking about this brilliant person who does great things, and that's also going to encourage the shareability, because once you talk about, think about Captain Tom. Everyone loves Captain Tom because of this fairly simple thing that he did, but because he's such a loving character, and he's volunteered his time, people want to share it. So it's the same with your current volunteers. Show them doing great things selflessly, that's going to encourage other people to want to share it and hopefully get involved as well. Absolutely.